Hey guys, King Charms here to be your judge, your jury, and your analyst, and today I bring to you my top 5 teams for Ultra Premier Classic. This is coming on Thursday. I will say my gripes at the end of this video, but these are my top 10. XLs are no longer banned, so XLs are allowed here. The good thing is, it's like I'm going to mention in the middle and the end of this video, there's a lot of buffs that were made around to where there's a lot of combinations that actually are better than XLs, so it's made it a lot less XL heavy. Not to say you still aren't going to see XLs, but non-XLs, yeah, it's a lot more dangerous. Except for Cradle EXL, which is going to be, yeah, except for Cradle EXL. That thing's annoying. But outside of this, before we get started, again, this is my top 5 teams for Ultra Premier Classic. This can be my therapist mental health tip of the day. It's from Psych Central. As usual, you could skip this by going straight to the chapters. And from Psych Central, I love it because these articles are medically reviewed by mental health professionals or by specialists in their field. So, with this being said, since we're talking about a classic, what is psychotherapy? So psychotherapy, it's what the basis of clinical counseling or what therapy is. For those of you that don't know, you might wonder why psychotherapy is about and if it's effective. Typically, there are many types of therapy that can help your mental health, but it's called psychotherapy. So therapy is called psychotherapy when you're seeing a psychotherapist. And what is psychotherapy? It is talk therapy. It's treatment for your mental health or supportive intervention for everyday challenges, concerns, and personal growth. So when you're doing emphatic responding, when you're trying to talk through challenges, etc., stabilize someone emotionally, you're doing talk therapy. And it can involve different methods and techniques, and it's usually tailored to your needs too. So talk therapy overall can be just a broad way of doing therapy, again, like emotional responding, etc., run through your problems life and find solutions, or you can do specific styles like CBT, solutions focused therapy, which is my jam, or you could do things like dialectical behavior therapy, etc. There's a lot of different styles and techniques. But in short, yes, therapy works. So before everyone's all like, oh, the phrase I hate the most is the one that it is what it is, or why pay for X amount for therapy? Therapy is $100 per hour or whatever. What is saying it is what it is zero. That's the stupidest thing you can do, because it is what it is will not solve severe mental illness. Those of you that do that, not you specifically, but if you do that, please stop. If you know someone that does that, they're freaking idiots, because you should not do that. Because you can't, major depressive disorder, severe trauma, etc. can't be cured by it is what it is. Guess what? It's going to sit there, and if you never process anything, it's going to just eat you alive. And it can get worse. So congratulations. That's why less than 1% of the world are mental health professionals and are able to do psychotherapy. So take a look at this article. It tells you the benefits, goals of psychotherapy, etc. If you've ever been curious about therapy and you want a broad down of what it actually is, and there are many links in here that are backed up by scientifically reviewed articles, because this is why people monetize psychotherapy and why it's so expensive, because like I mentioned, not a lot of people can do it, and I'm one of them. So, you can take a look at this article, and without further ado, this is my top 5 teams for Ultra Premier Classic, and let's get started. Alright, for the first team we have Dragonite, Swampert, and Machamp. Swampert's going to be your safe switch. You can run payback with Machamp. I've seen a lot of those running around the last Premier Classic. But you want Rock Slide just for Charizard, because you want something that gets to knock out flyers, particularly Charizard, because Charizard gets one shot by Rock Slide. Dragonite's the number 8 lead. It's still a really solid lead outside of seeing something like Walrein or Aurorus, but that's why we have our back row, because you have 2 things that can take out Aurorus. Great coverage, not a lot of bulk, not a lot of things in Ultra Premier Classic are going to have bulk. A lot of these things in Ultra Premier Classic, outside of using Steelix or Walrein, are going to do a ton of damage. As you see against the overall meta, this team does some work. With Dragonite and Charizard not being that great, you win the 1 shield, but Charizard will actually win the 2 shield straight Dragon Claw. Now, where this benefits you is that if you look here, you get to farm down Charizard. I would send in Swampert to farm it down, because Charizard won't get to a Blast Burn before you go there. You're likely gonna need a Dragon Claw. That's fine, because 1 mud shot from Swampert does only 2 damage. So you can send in Machamp, or you can send in Swampert to try to farm it down. But like I mentioned, you're gonna eat a Blast Burn or a Dragon Claw. So depending on IVs, be very careful, because it's going to take 14 much shots, I believe. And you don't want Swampert taking too much damage. But the good thing about Swampert, Dragon Claw doesn't do a lot of damage. And even though Blast Burn hurts, it's resistant. So, because even if you send in Machamp versus Charizard, versus Charizard, Machamp is squishy, so you don't want to take too much damage. But yeah, if you see a Charizard lead, break both shields, or if they let it go, then you can send in Swampert to fully farm down. Swampert with a ton of energy plus Machamp can close out really well. Your only threat here is Kamo and Mantine. Now the thing is, Mantine must be XL, so that's why I don't foresee a lot of Mantines running around. Along with that, with Kamo versus Dragonite in the 2 shield, it's not that bad. Because as you see here, it does have energy and you're going to probably eat a Dragon Claw. However, you only give up 1 shield. So both of you are going to give up 1 shield in this scenario. Or what you can do after you break 1 shield, you can give up Switch and send in Machamp. But I would after you break their shield, send in Machamp to go and try to farm them down. And then force a 1 shield. But again, Kamo, you need a hatchet and it's a lot of candy. But Kamo's been out for a minute. So outside of these two, Dragonite can do pretty well. If you look at Gliscor versus Dragonite, this is another thing to put up. Gliscor wins, but it lives by 1 HP. And this is kind of IV dependent. You kind of want them to boost because this allows you to farm down Gliscor and then Swampert has an energy lead for the back row. But pretty simple team. You lose the lead, you switch into Swampert, and then Dragonite and Machamp close out. Next up, we have Swampert, Trevenant, and Aurorus. Trevenant is still a really good safe switch. We're using Swampert lead here to break shields and possibly catch those Charizards. Swampert also does great against Aurorus because of Aurorus being a rock type and water beats rock. Great coverage. Bulk is here just because of Aurorus. Aurorus is a decently bulky mon. The problem with Aurorus is that, here's the thing. In order for you to get an Aurorus, it doesn't need to be high IV per se, but as you see here, it's kind of, it's expensive. 36.5, so the Stardust requirement is going to be high. Plus, unless you played Adventure Week a lot, you probably don't have an Aurorus just sitting around here. But with all the fighters still Obstagoon's the one to put out Machamp, you don't want it to go against Aurorus because Aurorus can get trucked. But as you see here, overall, this team does great against the overall meta. Swampert lead is a top 10 lead. And your only problem is Obstagoon, which is kind of interesting because in the 2 shield, Obstagoon actually will lose against Swampert. Swampert will literally Hydro Cannon you to death. Literally just Hydro Cannons you to death unless you boost. Keywords, unless you boost. So if it doesn't boost, Hydro Cannon does work. Same thing with Surfetched. You win by the sheer basis of just absolute pressure. Or, it beats you, but you pressure both of their shields. And they pressure both of your shields. But what I mean here is that you pressure them, and then you can farm it down. So they can choose to win with Surfetched, but if they win with Surfetched, you get to farm down with Trevenant or Aurorus. Preferably Trevenant, because you don't want Aurorus to go against the freaking Surfetched. Send in Trevenant, then Trevenant can get to a Shadow Ball. Outside of that, everything else, if you lose the lead, for example, against Walrein, Walrein's a really rough lead. You don't want to send, you don't want to send Trevenant against here. If you try to get an Earthquake through shields, try to bait or get Earthquakes through shields, and then go ahead and send in Aurorus. Aurorus has a great matchup against Walrein. So you could sack Swampert in the lead, and then send in Aurorus to farm it down if you see a Walrein in the lead. Outside of that, everything else is pretty simple. You say switch into Trevenant, and hopefully Swampert and Aurorus can close out the match for you. Next up, we have Gliscor, Surfetched, and Electivire. So for this rotation of Ultra Premier Classic, Surfetched is actually a good safe switch, and of course, Electivire is a fantastic closer. The reason why I liked Electivire for Ultra Premier Classic is because you have Ice Punch. So if you see a Gliscor, Ice Punch threatens hard, and Wild Charge will annihilate a lot of things from the face of the planet. Or the Pokemon world, depending on which one we're in. But as you see, we have a lot of coverage. Not a lot of bulk. Like I mentioned, not a lot of things in Ultra Premier Classic have a lot of bulk. Our whole team combinations. Good grades across everything else. Gliscor versus Charizard isn't bad at all. Like I mentioned, in a 2 shield, it's actually a simultaneous knockout if you boost. So as you see, simultaneous knockout. You have to Earthquake though, so double Night Slash to break shields and then Earthquake. Unless you boost for one of your Night Slashes and then you're gonna love life. So this is it's a simultaneous knockout. If you boost, you win, or it's literally a simultaneous knockout. I'm not sure if there's a bulk or break point to really depend on like the wing attack damage, but there's specific IVs, too specific to where it actually is like it matters. You might want, like, if you break both of your shields, you kind of want to live against Charizard so you can farm down. Because if it's simultaneous knockdown anyways, both you're going to guess which one you swap in. So again, 2 shield, break both shields with Night Slash, Earthquake, or you can go straight Night Slash if you boost. Other than that, if you lose the lead with Gliscor, Safe Switch into Surf Edge, and Electivire closes out. So, pretty simplistic. The reason why I'm using Night Slash, though, for Surf Edge instead, your typical preferred moveset is Leaf Blade and Brave Bird. I'm putting Night Slash on Surf Edge because double boost. And if you get a Charizard versus Surf Edge and you boost, you could come out with a dub. But you have to boost in that scenario. Otherwise, Charizard just trucks you. Which is why we want Surf Edged. Surf Edge with Night Slash. Plus, if you're using Surf Edge as a switch, yeah, you could Brave Bird, but you have to Brave Bird through shields, and that's a lot to ask for. It's happened. I've done it before, but it's a lot to ask for. Your weaknesses being Mr. Rhyme and Gliscor. And with the fact that Mr. Rhyme actually like, Mr. Rhyme loses the 2 shield against Gliscor. That's what I kind of don't like about PV Poke over here when it comes to the first slot right here. The lead should bounce off of 2 shields. I get it, why it's complicated, but you want to double check your leads right here based off of this, because this is results are from 1s and the 0s, not the 2s. So when a lot of content creators go out there and like, yay, they win the 1 shield, a lot of times what happens is they're going to tell you, I win the 1 shield, but you swapped into them. So 1, you lose 1 or 2 turns depending on what your fast move goes into, or 2, you're not in the 1 shield, you're in the 2 shield. So that's why I don't like the whole like I win the 1 shield language, because it doesn't, nothing, unless it's a hard win for the 1 shield, you don't, nothing comes out entirely to a sim. Or nothing computes exactly. Because of switch, and depending on what matchup it is. If it's a hard loss, yeah, you're going to win that, of course. Next up, we have Charizard, Swampert, and Venusaur. The budget team, my favorite budget team. And guess what? Because of Wing Attack getting buffed, it actually got better. So Wing Attack Charizard is going to be the preferred moveset. You can use Dragon Breath or Wing Attack. I prefer Wing Attack because of the Wing Attack buff. And with that, you have amazing coverage. Not a lot of bulk. You're going to use the sheer power of the overpowered legacy moves that all 3 of these Pokemon possess to absolutely destroy your opponent. And as you see, they do incredibly well. I'm super happy that Nidoqueen got buffed. I mean, got nerfed, because, yay, we don't have to get Poison Fang to death by in the 2 shield. And Nidoqueen will now lose the 2 shield, and you could just straight you could Dragon Claw, and then you have the Blast Burn. But, as you see here, really great coverage. Aether got better thanks to the Wing Attack buff. Charizard versus Dragonite, you actually win this. You will win the 2 shield because of the fact that, because of Wing Attack gathering a lot of energy, and with the damage plus the Dragon Claws, as you see here, you will outpace them to the 3rd Dragon Claw, and you will outwin. And not only that, you might possibly, depending on what comes in, you will possibly get to a Dragon Claw or Blast Burn. Same thing with Guja and Jadrigan. The reason why is because Gudra will win just because it has Muddy Water, but this gives you the power to farm down with Swampert. You can Mud Shot it down. Actually, don't come in with Swampert because I forgot this thing has Power Whip. Send in Venusaur, farm it down. It can tank Muddy, Venusaur can tank Muddy Water or Power Whip. And then it can go ahead and you can just Frenzy Plant and Sludge Bomb the unholy crap out of whatever's in the back. So again, if you see a Gudra, do not send in Swampert because it could get Power Whipped. Send in Venusaur, it can farm it down comfortably. And then you can go ahead and Frenzy Plant, Sludge Bomb, whatever's in the back to oblivion. And as you see here, same thing with Jadrigan with Jadrigan with the Dragonite matchup. Dragon Claw outpaces you, and then you absolutely wipe out your opponent. If you do lose the lead with Charizard, though, Swampert's going to be your safe switch. It looks suicidal, but the thing about it is, the reason why Swampert works as a safe switch is there's Hydro Cannon and Earthquake threaten your opponent hard. So unless they swap Dragonite onto you, Swampert can still do a lot of work against the meta, or it can do some damage and chip away at your opponent to where Charizard and Venusaur can close out with an energy lead. That's what literally Swampert's for. You switch in Swampert, you say someone do as much damage as you can, Charizard, Venusaur farm down, and then you use the overpowered legacy moves to blast and destroy your opponent. Really cheap team. This is the ultimate budget team. You'll probably see me do shopcasting a lot because it is budget, it is money, and it does really well for Ultra Premier Classic Season 13. And last but not least, we have Charizard, Gyarados, Swampert. Yes, this is ABB, and yes, I love Gyarados Safe Switch is a really solid Safe Switch for this cup. There's nothing that outright will actually wall Gyarados in Ultra Premier Classic. It beats a lot of things. Aqua Tail will take out the 2 shield, and it is a top Safe Switch. You could use the Shadow one. I prefer the regular one though, just because I have a Shadow one built, but yeah, Shadow is actually better in the overall standings. We have Swampert to close out, and as you see, this team does a ton of damage. A for coverage, will blast and destroy your opponent to oblivion. This is basically the other team, except you're using Gyarados as a Safe Switch instead of Swampert, which makes it a lot more solid. Walrein is going to give you a problem here, or basically the water types. Walrein will give you a problem with this team. But Walrein loses the 2 shield if you blast burn through shields. So Walrein will lose if you can blast burn through shields, and then Gyarados and Swampert have great general stability in the back. Unless you see an electric type, which honestly isn't that bad, because if you take out the lead, if you win the lead, Swampert, you could throw Swampert into said electric type and do really well. Plus with Gyarados and Swampert, both of them do well against Auroras. So solid team. Dragonite in the lead. As you see here, I already showed you the Dragonite matchup. If you lose a straight Dragon Claw, the one that's going to be rough is Gyarados. So Gyarados with Charizard is probably going to be the roughest one, because it does win the 2 shield. And if you swap out fast right away, as you see here, you could win straight Aqua Tail. So it needs 2 turns of difference. You're going to lose 1 turn for switch. So you'll barely beat out Charizard in the 2 shield. Barely. And if you look at bulk and breakpoints, those IVs need to be pretty dang high before you start doing more damage. And that's it. This team is very solid. I like it a lot. And like I mentioned, usually with Charizard, you Safe Switch to Gyarados, and then Swampert will close out. Swampert with 2 shield is very powerful. And in the back, you can use like the Swampert 2 shield strat with this team. And that's game. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. As much as I love Ultra Premier Classic, I still dislike the fact that we're no longer having Premier, Ultra Premier. We're not having any more like, what is it? What did they ban? Well, Ultra Premier Classic was supposed to ban XLs, but now they no longer ban XLs. Because Niantic's justification is people should have played enough to where they have XLs. How about your newer players, though? So, I am not a fan of barrier to entry, of making the barrier to entry higher. If their justification is you can use Ultra League, guess what? Ultra League has legendaries. Which means any new player pretty much will not have the ability... Well, you can... Now that a lot of the... Here's where I'll give that credit for. A lot of the buffs that they came out with actually made it so that somewhat budget, are available. But what I don't like about that is that the legacy moves, you can't switch them out anytime now. Which is really dumb. Because it's been like, what, 4 years? And we still make it to where legacy moves outside... I understand for the newer ones, but for the old ones, they should be like... You should be able to change them at any time. You shouldn't need elite TMs. But that's how Niantic is monetizing PvP. Their monetization outside of you playing it is literally just buying boxes so that you can get elite TMs for your Pokemon. So that's how they're monetizing it, which is why they don't sell charged TMs in boxes. It's dumb, I know. And it's pretty clear that Niantic and Nintendo, well, it's Nintendo's fault. Nintendo is just a really greedy... They shut down anything esports related. So Pokemon Go had a chance, but the problem is, thanks to content creators not wanting to, well, greedy content creators that only want to be full-time content creators, only care about money versus the community. They can say they care about the community, but if you're trying to be a full-time content creator off of this and you're partnered with Niantic, you're one of the biggest hypocrites in the freaking world, and you should not be having a voice or say, because that's bias. This is why, as a therapist, I can't therapize my coach. I can't therapize my kids I coach in wrestling, because guess what? It's a dual relationship, and that's unethical. It's the same thing for Pokemon Go PvP and for content creators. You shouldn't have a say or a voice with Niantic or in the community because you partner with the game. That's bias. But yeah, that's the state of the game. Unfortunately, I don't see the esport going anywhere as usual, which is really sad, because I really want people to, I really want to see the full-time esports thing, just like Apex and everything like that, which was a dream, but it's impossible. It's not going to happen at this point. It's going to be pay to compete, or use an insane amount of time to compete in Pokemon Go PvP. And that's not the way to go, sadly. But despite that, I hope y'all enjoys in Season 13. I hope you guys are doing great in your Go Battle League sets. Please like, subscribe, and comment for the YouTube algorithm, and I will see you guys on the next video.